everybody. It's Bayou Bets time. It's Monday. It's December the 11th, 2023, and we're here to talk to you about all kinds of fun stuff this afternoon. Before we get to all that, we remind you that Caesars Sportsbook is the official odds partner of Bet.NOLA.com, and a reminder to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. We will have some changing times over the course of the next couple weeks with some weird programming times. We're usually on Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. We're going to have some different times. If you subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, you will always know when we're going. I know Thursday we're on at 3 p.m., and next week we're on just once. I think it's going to be on Tuesday. We'll figure that out as we go along. Before we talk more about that, I got to bring in my pal Spencer the Guru as we talk about it. Yippee! Spence, the Saints won.
Hey, what's up, Jim? Yeah, I like the emoji touch there because I feel like that definitely sums up how he felt about yesterday's game. Yeah, they won by 22 somehow, but even with that big deficit, you still just want to just roll your eyes because they made the same mistakes they had been making. And as our columnist Rod Walker pointed out, they're just lucky that they happened to face the one out of the 31 other teams that they could have beat yesterday. Because
who says old men can't use emojis and stuff like,
we used it well.
Yeah, all right. We got other topics to go on. We got two Saints topics today. Actually, Saints are, believe it or not, and I've been reading all this stuff all over social media, like, that's the last game. The Saints will win all year. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but Vegas doesn't think so. The Saints are favored in all 4 of their remaining games. They're going to talk about that in a little bit, and do you believe that? Hey, if you think the Saints are going to lose every game, we got a little parlay you can put together, a little money line parlay if you can find a place to book it, and maybe you'll win some money. Who knows? All right, we're also going to talk about bowl season opening on Saturday, sort of. The best bowl game of them all is either, let's see, UL is playing Jacksonville State in the New Orleans Bowl, and UCLA is playing, I believe, Boise
State.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that just a little bit. Get excited about college bowl season. Maybe not yet, but we'll talk about it a little bit. And then a Monday Night Football preview. I know a lot of people's fantasy seasons are hinging on what happens tonight. We'll talk about that. Its own little segment. That is at the end of the show. But first, we got to talk about it. There is plenty of fight in these New Orleans Saints. Spence?
Oh, yeah, fighting against each other. A lot of a civil war going on there. Yeah, just want to, and I see Salvario's comment there. I'd give a shout out to anyone that watched the game in its entirety. Well, this is a disclaimer. Me and Jim were paid to watch the game in its entirety, and I don't know about you, Jim, but if it wasn't for that, I'd have had trouble getting through that one because, yeah, that was just absolutely brutal. Outside of the end there, which they it was nice to see Jimmy Graham, score there, and the nostalgia. The one time the Dome actually was fired up, but yeah, it's the thing. It's like there's just it's sad whenever the highlight of your game was a 37-year-old tight end catching a touchdown.
I don't know. There are other highlights. We'll talk about them. Saints Giants ticks $12. All right, if you can, you got to pay the fee though. So there's really more like $17 or $18, Mark. You got to pay the fee. Charles, am I saying that the Saints are favored against the Rams? You're jumping ahead of us. But yes, I am saying that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. The Saints are favored in all 4 games. I'm not just making this up. They are favored in all 4 games the rest of the way. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. Oh, look, here's my take. It's the same take as I had this morning. It's frustrating to watch these guys. I mean, it really is. I mean, how many times, Spencer, did I say wide open when Carolina's Bryce Young is throwing the ball and he just missed a guy? I mean, 31 other quarterbacks would have hit some of these wide open receivers that they had. So if he hits 2 of those passes, it's a much different game. And then Derek Carr, 37 yards through the first 3 quarters of this football game. 37 yards, not rushing, no, passing yards. He had 37 passing yards through 3 quarters. You know what he was? You know what he looked like? He looked like a guy who was concussed. He shouldn't have been playing football yesterday. This staff is completely inept. I mean, people can complain about Derek Carr and getting in fights and whatever else and the continuity on his team. But to me, everything stems from Paul Bunyan, a.k.a. Chopping Wood Dennis Allen. It all stems from him. You can't, you got a capable backup quarterback. We don't know how good he can be because you'd rather play a guy that's concussed to save you from a potential quarterback controversy later. It's infuriating.
Yeah, and the funny thing with the Derek Carr, with the almost fight with Eric McCoy, was that he was yelling at him, and it wasn't even McCoy who missed the block. I forgot who it was, but looking back on it, it was definitely not McCoy. McCoy did his job, and I feel like that's why McCoy was so pissed off, because he's like, why are you yelling at me? I didn't do anything, bro. And it was just boiled over from him. He's just sick of seeing Carr yelling at teammates. I know he played it off afterwards. My apologies to Derek. It was nothing. It's just, if he said all the right things or whatever, but to me, there was something there. That tells me that there's definitely some lack of trust in Derek Carr. With his own center jawing at him like that. And you can blame Carr, you can blame DA, you can blame whoever you want at this point. We blame everybody each week, and it just usually ends up the same stuff. And I know, as they call him, Paul Bunyan, it's like, well, we got the win. Doesn't matter. Same with Derek Carr. Doesn't matter. We got the win. But it does matter, because the bottom line is if you would have played any other team, you'd have taken an L. So you definitely got to stop living in la-la land and look yourself in the mirror, or else they're going to lose at least 3 of the next 4.
It's like Jeff Duncan said. I don't know if you read his column, but Jeff Duncan was talking about how, what was most telling is when he got sacked. When he got sacked, no one went to help pick him up. They just let him lay there. Pick your own self up. There's something going on behind the scenes. And look, we could say it till the cows come home. I think everybody understands it except Dennis Allen. There was no reason, like I said, there was no reason to start him yesterday, but you refused to put Jameis Winston in there. And there must be a reason. And I think that, they can say on the outside that nothing's going on. Everybody's happy. It's kumbaya.
It's not kumbaya.
No, there's definitely, that locker room, there's something going on. Team Mama, she'd like to know what DA was smiling at. I never saw him smile. I got to be honest. So if you saw him smile, you saw something that I didn't see. I don't think anyone's smiling. I think, Spencer, that's part of the problem. We're kind of like smirking, talking about it, but you got to try to make fun out of it as best you can. I don't see anyone in that locker room smiling. I don't see anyone happy. Even Derek Carr walked up to the podium yesterday. It was almost like he was preparing himself, bracing himself for what he knew was coming. They're just not smiling. Nobody's having a good time.
No, the interview with, when he was saying about, I think with the challenge, like he Dennis kind of made fun of himself about not putting enough oomph on the challenge flag. I think that's what she's referring to. I think that was in today's presser, because yesterday's presser, which I was at, was just like, it was so pitiful, the weak responses. And shout out to the reporters, our reporters and also some other reporters that are actually asking the tough questions now. I'm so glad to see it.
Tough questions. It only took 8 weeks, but the media's getting pissed off too. It's hilarious. They're finally asking questions they should have asked back in October. And they keep letting all the staff and everyone go for a pass. And it is what it is. Dustin's, why don't they stick to things that work? Play action, run game, Jimmy G in the red zone. I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm with you on sticking to the things that work. I'm sticking with you with the screen game, the play. Jimmy G needs to go bye-bye. Okay? The fact that you're even asking to count on a 37-year-old tight end says a whole lot about where this team is right now. And, maybe he is better than Juwan Johnson, though, because Juwan Johnson can't catch a cold. And Foster Moreau, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what half of these guys are doing, but Jimmy Graham is just done, and the Saints are relying on this guy the last couple of weeks.
He's shown that he's not done though.
He's done. He's compared to some of these other guys, maybe, and that's what Team He's more effective than Juwan Johnson. Maybe he is, and again, if that's true, that is a complete reflection on the rest of the offense. I know the fans love him. They want to wear their number 80 jerseys, but good Lord, if that's what you're counting on, it's worse than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he probably wouldn't start for most other teams, but the bottom line is he's looking like the best tight end on this team. So you might as well just use him, and it'll make the fans happy at least. So, and he admitted it was funny in the press conference. He had thought he was done. He was planning on sailing around the world because he's real into sailing and flying planes. He's a world traveler. So he was planning on his venture to sail around the world, and then the Saints call him to come play, and he showed enough to get a contract, and now he's essentially their starting tight end. That just goes to show the state of the Saints team.
Well, I mean, you can't just do things because the fans want them to, but and the team's defense, I don't have a lot of defense for the team, but this team is now tied for the lead in the NFC South after as bad as they have played. That's right. That's how bad the NFC South is. And you see the odds. Remember we told you last week they were back to plus 400 to win the NFC South, and they were plus 12,500 to win the Super Bowl, which means that $100 bet a week ago, if you think they're going to win the Super Bowl and just turn everything around, God bless you. But if you put $100 on it back then on Monday, it would win you 12,500. Today it would only win you 10,000. That's right. $100 bet on the Saints to win the Super Bowl would win you $10,000, or $10 if you think they're going to win the Super Bowl would win you $1,000.
Please don't do it, people.
Yeah,
please don't.
But I will say this. As before we move on to the next topic and looking at the rest of the season. In fact, maybe we'll move on now. Odds to win the NFC South plus 190. Spencer, that's second still to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are still the slight favorite in this division. Saints are tied with the Bucs. The Bucs are also plus 190. Say what you want, but I mean that's what it is. And there you look. These are odds by what's the wording that we use?
Odds in the market.
Odds in the market, because they're not up at Caesars Sportsbook right now. In fact, they're not up at most markets. But this is a collection of lines from other markets that are up for the rest of the year. The Saints are a 1-point favorite. Well, they're 6-point favorites against the Giants this Sunday. They were 5-point favorites yesterday. That shows you what Vegas thinks of the Giants. They think the Giants are worse than Carolina. I have a hard time believing that. Maybe we'll find out tonight because the Giants are playing tonight against the Packers. But the Saints are 1-point favorites at L.A. I think that's going to change. I think by the time that opens, because sharps will jump all over the Rams if that's the case. The Saints are 1.5-point favorites at Tampa, and they're 2.5-point favorites at home against Atlanta. And I will say this right now. You know me. Unfortunately, I have not bet this way. There are only a couple times that I've actually bet on or against the Saints all year long. But if the Saints are favored, whether it be by a point or pick them in L.A., give me the Rams. I'm going to bet them right now.
Yeah, I agree. And Charles is saying that if he weren't already retired, he'd be retired on the proceeds from that one. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand that at all. You know, that's one of those ones. I feel like whenever it gets on to the bigger market books, it'll probably open at even, I would think. But I still think the sharps will pound the Rams. So I don't think that one will stay.
They already hate them right now anyway. They hate the Saints. They're pissed off the Saints. We saw last week. We were talking about the Panthers line, and people were jumping off the Saints bandwagon, and that's what kept that line at +5. I thought you were getting a bargain on the Saints. I just wasn't willing to advocate as one of my best bets because I'd been burned by them the week before, so I just stayed away from it. But I actually thought there was a bargain on Saints at -5. Dustin is saying he'd bet. Look, I'm going to warn you. Do not bet a mortgage that they'll be sub 500 the rest of the way. The reason why I say that is they only have 4 games. They're going to win Sunday most likely. I mean, there's no sure thing. They're probably going to win this coming Sunday, which means to be sub 500, they'd have to lose the last 3 games after that. So don't go bet a mortgage payment that that's going to happen, because I think at worst they're going to go 2-2 the rest of the way. That's my opinion. They are 6-7 now. They go 2-2. Obviously,
maybe 8-9.
8-9, right? I think that's the floor. I really do. But I think they're rightfully favored over Tampa Bay. I know you don't think so against Atlanta, but I really still think it's going to come down to that last game against Atlanta. Tampa Bay also has some other games. They got to play Green Bay this weekend. That's going to be a tough game for them. They have another tough one besides
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. They're going to play Jacksonville, Saints, and Green Bay still on their docket. Tampa Bay, I just don't see them winning this division at all. So it's going to come down to the Saints Atlanta. I really think it's going to come down to that last game.
Yeah, it very well could. I'm not sleeping on Tampa though anymore. I've been saying that I thought Tampa would show who they really were, but they showed that they're here fighting. Well, I mean, they're still fighting. Baker Mayfield's the best quarterback in the NFC South right now. Yes, he is. Because Derek Carr's not healthy. If Derek Carr were healthy, I'd agree that he's the best. But he's got 3 broken ribs and multiple concussions. All right,
well, that's a fair statement.
I'd say in their current states, Baker's the best right now, and because of that, I think the Bucs could end up stealing this thing.
I just don't think the Bucs are capable of beating Green Bay and Jacksonville. I just don't think they can. And honestly, they even if they just win one of those, one of the teams is going to win, and one of these teams is going to win 3 games. I mean, they just are. It's going to come. We'll see what happens. Charles is saying if he were not already retired, he would be betting retiring on the proceeds from getting points with the Rams versus Saints. Rams could win by 2 touchdowns. Yeah, but see, here's the problem with these Saints. You just don't know which team's going to show up. And from a Saints fan's perspective, I understand the frustration. That's what I was talking about on Datitude this morning. They are infuriating to watch if you have something invested in them, even emotionally or financially or whatever. Any investment you have in the Saints, they're infuriating. But if you're just watching them from the outside and you're just looking at them, it's hard to bet on or against them because you really don't know what kind of team you're going to get, Spencer. And if Derek Carr is healthy, the Rams' defense isn't very good. You could easily see them going to Thursday. And one thing about them playing on a Thursday is, I don't think they have time to, they don't have time to screw anything up. They're just going to go out there and play.
I mean, if you think about how they played recently, though, I feel like they've been pretty consistently bad. Because even though they won yesterday by over 20, I mean, they were outgained by nearly 100 yards in the game. And had Bryce Young just been able to complete, like he said, a couple of those long passes, it would have been a completely different game. So to me, it's to the point to where we know what this team is. This team stinks. If it wasn't for the easy schedule, this would probably be a 6-win team. But because of the easy schedule, they'll probably win 8. I would think they'll go 2-2 the rest of the way and win 8, which could maybe get them the NFC South title. I tend to doubt it, though. I think one of the others will win 3.
You're going to have to win 9 to win.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I still, I've had the future on Atlanta, thought about hedging it, but more I thought about it, I think they're going to do it. I think they'll just basically do it by default because they're kind of like a jack of all trades team. Like their defense isn't amazing, but it's not bad. It's actually slightly above average. And their offense, while slightly below average, has the most talent. I mean, you got Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. Yeah, your QB sucks, but at least you've got all that talent. Where with Tampa, Baker's been doing pretty good, but they don't really have much other than Mike Evans and Rashad White. Chris Godwin's been kind of a shell of himself this year. And then the Saints offense, with all the injuries, I mean, Carr's banged up. You got Kamara still and Olave. But other than those two, you've got nothing dependable. And now Taysom's banged up. So we saw how bad they were yesterday without Taysom.
To your point, one thing that definitely favors Atlanta, and we saw it in the first game. We'll talk about Atlanta in a couple weeks when we get there. But one thing that definitely favors Atlanta is if you look at yesterday, Saints gave up 207 rushing yards to the Panthers. You talk about a team that has Chuba Hubbard as their number 1 running back. I mean, who the hell is Chuba Hubbard? He's probably the 25th to 30th best running back in the NFL. And they're giving up 207 yards of this team on the ground, which is, by the way, that's about what the Saints gained in total offense, period. So, I mean, you're talking about, they gained as many yards on the ground as the Saints gained total. Also, by the way, the Panthers had the ball for 10 minutes more than the Saints. Ugh, Nathaniel's talking about he apologizes for his doubt. Offense won 1 solid quarter. Hey, playing the Panthers, you don't need to be that good. You don't need to apologize.
Yeah, all you need is 1 solid quarter to beat that team.
There's no you don't need to apologize for that. Gerald, stop giving Carr credit for completely doing nothing.
I'm not giving him credit. He can't accuse us of
giving him credit for anything from yesterday, but there have been games where he's been good. So, I mean, look, haters are going to hate, and I get that, and I'm completely frustrated with him too. And, look, like I said, there's something going on behind the scenes. There's a reason why his teammates are pissed off at him. It's not just from one play. I promise you, Eric McCoy didn't yell at Derek Carr for one play, for saying something after one play. There's something going on behind the scenes. But you can't not give the guy credit because he has been, at times when he's not injured, he's been pretty decent. I got to say that.
Ooh,
But
well, I don't know.
tell me where he hasn't been. Tell me when
he
wasn't hurt.
So
he
had that Colts game where he did well, but outside of that game, what other games
Jacksonville game
has he really shown? Yeah, he did okay.
He's thrown for over 300 yards in multiple games this year. I mean, I'm not saying that's great. I'm not saying put him in the Saints Hall of Fame or anything. But I mean, when he's healthy, I'm fine with Derek Carr. The problem is this coaching staff. You don't need to play him when he's not healthy because I think, to your point about Baker Mayfield being better than Derek Carr right now, and I agree with you, Jameis Winston is better than Derek Carr right now. I mean, so why aren't you using Jameis? That's the problem that I have more than anything. More than anything. Jeff saying behind closed doors something's up, and yeah, they get Barkley this week. But the problem is the Giants don't have much more than Barkley. Ronald, you can say red zone all you want, but he was just fine in the red zone last week. Derek Carr was not the reason why the Saints lost last week. Just not. So, I mean, you're saying he misses receivers consistently. So do a lot of quarterbacks. I mean, think about the quarterback play we saw in the NFL yesterday. Just go through and talk about, C.J. Stroud, who's supposedly this wonderful, fantastic rookie, stunk to high heaven. Oh, it was raining. I don't care. He stunk. You can go, Desmond Ridder stunk all year. They've been flip-flopping back and forth between quarterbacks. Sam Howell's supposed to be wonderful Washington. They can't win a football game. Just go through. There's like 15 quarterbacks in the NFL that stink.
Yeah, you had all the injuries, a lot of QB injuries, and so I know we'll probably have to move on here soon from the Saints, but my final points will be, yes, I do feel like Jameis has gotten somewhat blackballed here. You could date back to last year with Andy Dalton. They kept playing Andy Dalton. It just tells me that they don't trust Jameis to start a football game. They just trust him as a backup, but not as a starter. They'd rather play an injured Carr over Jameis. And then as far as this week, the Giants line +6, I'd take the Giants.
That's not why they don't want to start Jameis. It has nothing to do with what he did. Chris, you are completely wrong. Winston throws too many picks. Sure, so do a lot of quarterbacks. Can't identify coverages. You're wrong. You're wrong. I think you're wrong. I think Jameis is a fine quarterback. He's the best backup quarterback in the NFL. And look, I can't believe I'm sitting here defending any quarterback on the Saints roster. But I think both of these quarterbacks are capable. But the problem, again, is the coaching staff. They don't want a quarterback controversy. They are so scared, not just, I think, of Jameis Winston. They are so scared that if they put Jameis Winston in and he has a good game and they want to go back to Derek Carr, that they're just going to the staff's going to get obliterated. But what they don't realize is they're getting obliterated anyway. So just go ahead and make some moves. You can't win by just keep doing the same old things that get you beat. That's what's more frustrating than anyway. I see where you're coming from. I'm trying not to defend anyone, really, because this whole coaching staff is blasé and stinks. But you're right, man. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Giants cover the 6-point spread coming up on Sunday. I haven't done my analysis yet. I think a lot has to do with tonight. What scares me about them, Spencer, though, is if they lay an egg tonight, they stink, and I'm not saying they will, but we'll get to Monday Night Football preview later. But if they stink tonight and lay an egg, they have nothing to play for, really. Do they want to come back and come to New Orleans on short rest? And how are they going to play in a game like that? I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I just feel like if they stick with Tommy DeVito, he's capable of hitting some of those longer throws, unlike Bryce Young. Him and Jalen Hyatt have actually connected some here down the stretch. Not saying the Giants are some great passing attack, but if the Panthers would have just completed a couple of those long ones that they were attempting, they may have snuck through yesterday. So I'm just saying Tommy DeVito is nothing special, but at this point, he's probably better than Bryce Young because Bryce Young, I don't know what's happened, but he's got zero confidence right now. He is completely shot. To me, the Panthers would just be better off pulling him for the season and just going with Andy Dalton.
I think they should. We talked about it yesterday in the Dome. I think they would have been better off going to Andy. I can't believe I'm saying this because anybody who's listened to me over the course of last year knows what I think about Andy Dalton. But I think the Panthers would have been better off weeks ago going with Andy Dalton. And because, like you said yesterday, and I agree with you, they're ruining Bryce Young's confidence. I mean, this kid may not be able to come back from a season like this if he keeps playing like this. So he's definitely got to get a good coach. They got to get someone in there like a Joe Brady type who they already had and got rid of who can help be a quarterback whisperer because, I mean, Bryce Young is going to have a tough time coming back from this kind of stuff. Okay, we're going to come back to pro football in just a minute. I want to spend literally 2 minutes before we finish with Monday Night Football talking about the college football bowl slate this weekend, talking about the New Orleans Bowl. Your UL Raging Cajuns are going to be here in the Dome against Jacksonville State. I didn't believe this line when I saw it, but Jacksonville State actually a 3-point favorite over the Raging Cajuns on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, that's about fair because let's be real, my Raging Cajuns haven't been good this year. I mean, barely made it to a bowl at 6-6, so they're just in a way happy to be there, but I would think they'll play fairly well in this one, being that Jacksonville State has never been in a bowl before. This is a new spot for them. Cajuns, on the other hand, very seasoned in this spot. It's a familiar space, very, very close to home, been in this spot before, but I kind of think Jacksonville State's in a good spot here because I don't think this Cajuns team is going to be very fired up for this. I think they're just going to kind of go through the motions. With Jacksonville State, they're looking to make history. So, and, it would be their first bowl win as a Division I team. So if I had to play this, I'd have to lean Jacksonville State. To me, they've had the better resume on the season, even though they're in a weaker conference. But you only need to lay 3 points. I think that could be somewhat of a value.
Sav, Chris, Nathaniel, and CJ, I'm going to get to your comments when we go back to the Monday night preview. You got some interesting things that I'd like to show. We're going to get to that in just a minute. All right. There are 7 college football bowl games this weekend. I couldn't fit them all on the screen. Obviously, I picked the 2 that I think are the most interesting there at the bottom. UCLA, Boise, and then you're talking about 2.5 point spread games. My own personal thing is I don't really watch a lot of bowl games until at least there's a team that I've watched this season because I don't care much about it unless I got money riding on it. UCLA, Boise may be interesting.
Yeah, it could be. I also think Miami of Ohio and App State could be interesting, being that Miami ran through the MAC and the App was one of the better Sun Belt teams. So there could be some interesting matchups here. They go back to UCLA, Boise. I kind of like Boise here just because I feel like UCLA, I kind of look at the way team seasons went. And UCLA was a team that started off hot, thought they may have a shot at the Pac-12, but I just think they're going to come out flat. I mean, Chip Kelly, he's an older coach. I don't really see him being fired up for this, where Boise State's been red hot down the stretch. So I think there could be some value with the Broncos.
Yeah, and the way they played with their they have an interim coach, I believe, or an interim coach that they've already named head coach, I believe. But they have the way they played against UNLV and steamrolled UNLV in their Mountain West Conference game. It was very impressive, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. A lot of times you see these big-name schools come out in bowls like this. They're playing at home. They're not going anywhere. Why do they even care? I'm with you. I like Boise State in that game if I had to play it. And who knows? Maybe I will play a game if I'm not doing anything Saturday night at 6:30. Although there is there's NFL football on Saturday this week, so I don't know how much of these bowl games going to be watching. All right, before we close it out, I want to talk a little bit about Monday Night Football, but I want to go back to some comments that we had. Sav, do I think Cam George should take a week or 2 off? Not really doing much out there. Maybe, but the problem is you're never going to get Cam Jordan to take a week off. Is he coming to the end of his road? Maybe. Cam Jordan, though, I agree, has not been very effective this year. Chris is just, Joe Brady is nothing without Burrow. Come on, man. Have you noticed how much better Buffalo's been playing with Joe Brady taking the reins the past few weeks? I mean, I don't think I'm the only one that noticed that, right, Spence?
Yeah, it's more simple with the play calling, but more effective. So I feel like if you bring Joe Brady in, he's one of those guys that he's going to figure a way to attack the defense efficiently. And it's all, today's game's all about efficiency. So even though James Cook had more receiving yards than Stephon Diggs yesterday, that's what was working for them. So, I like Joe Brady.
By the way, a lot of people might say the Bengals are nothing without Joe Burrow, but they look pretty decent the last 2 weeks. Just saying.
Yeah, they are part of the big bucks. Jake Browning impressed me on Monday night. It's a good system over there. Burrow is obviously the leader of that, but it just goes to show even without him that they can still stay afloat.
Daniel, Winston plays and outshines Carr, admitting he made $150 million mistake. Oh, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's it, and that's why they don't want to play him. You're right, Nathaniel.
Nobody wants to admit they want to make $150. Who would want to make a $150 mistake? CJ, here we go. The Derek Carr was playing poorly because he's injured. Well, I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist or someone that knows numbers all that well. You didn't have to make an A in high school math to go look at stats and point to when Derek Carr was healthy and when he wasn't and what his numbers were. It's pretty simple, really. You go back and look. You can take your little sheet and see when Derek Carr was injured and look at the paper. It's really simple, CJ. That's all you got to do. I'm just saying. Charles, good show. We're chopping the wood. We're chopping the wood. We're loading it on the truck. There's no doubt about that. All right, before we go off the air today, Spence, we've got 2 Monday night football games. You are the fantasy guru. I know that at least with all them leagues you're in, you got to have some leagues that are riding on tonight's games.
Yes, I do. I have my big money league that's riding on the shoulders of Jordan Love and Jalen Waddle. If they can combine for, I believe it's 60 points, I'll get in. So we'll need a Monday night miracle, but they've got upside. Jalen Waddle's yet to really have a breakout game this year. Maybe he'll do it tonight, being that, the teams know that Tyreek Hill's the alpha over there. Maybe Tennessee will just be like, anyone but Tyreek Hill is going to beat us tonight, and that someone would most likely be Jalen Waddle, and then the Giants defense isn't very good. So J Love, he's been red hot lately. I think he could possibly have another big one. Most of my other leagues are pretty much decided, but definitely need those guys to go off if I want to stay alive in my big money league.
What a brutal finish for me. The league, my main league that I formed back in 1989, was going into yesterday. I could have either been the 1 seed or out of the playoffs. That's how close this whole thing is. You're in it with me. You're taking over a team for
that
league's
been crazy. Yeah,
it has been insane, and it came down to there's one team that I really needed to lose if I lose, and it's starting to look like I'm going to lose now. And I just needed this one other team to lose, and they were down by 21 going into last night with their kicker, the kicker from Dallas. He kicks a 60-yarder. He kicks a 59-yarder. And so just down the stretch, he's up by 3. All he needs to do, he can kick a field goal because he's going to lose in overtime. It just needs to be less than 50 yards. So what does he do? He kicks exactly a 50-yard field goal. I lose by a foot, Spencer. I think I'm going to get knocked out of the playoffs by a foot. If he had it's been 1 foot further in, the dude I need to loses, but whatever. I still got a very slight chance. I also need a Monday night miracle. Okay. Let's talk about, no one cares about fantasy teams. Let's talk about these 2 games and what we think about these 2 games. Green Bay at the Giants. Green Bay is a 6-point favorite. Obviously, coming off that big win against Kansas City, the Giants have been playing well, not great. They've won 2 in a row for Mr. DeVito. And then on the other side, you got the high-flying Miami Dolphins, who have just been crushing, and I mean obliterating bad football teams. I think the Titans qualify in there. I'll save my picks for last. What you got on tonight?
All right, yeah, I think Mr. DeVito comes crashing down tonight. I think Green Bay wins this fairly easily. Got him on the teaser, though. Now they just need to win by 1, so I feel pretty confident about that. I just don't see DeVito getting in a rhythm tonight. I think Green Bay's got enough on defense to slow him down. Saquon might rip off a big run or 2, but the way Jordan Love's been playing, I think he's going to have a big night, as well as A.J. Dillon. It's going to be no Aaron Jones. I think Dillon, the Giants have a really bad run defense. I think Dillon rumbles for at least 50-plus yards, maybe a touchdown or 2. So I feel good about Green Bay tonight. I'd maybe lay to 6. I definitely wouldn't put more than like a unit or 2 on it, but I got them in the teaser, so I'm feeling good about that. And then the Titans, Dolphins, I kind of like the Titans here. Again, neither of these strike me as ones I'd put a whole lot on, but I think the Titans with Mike Vrabel, they could give Miami a little bit of trouble. Miami's used to steamrolling these bad teams, but Tennessee, yeah, they're bad, but they're not quite as bad. They're not in the very bottom tier. They're in the tier above that, to where I think they could give Miami a little trouble. And with Will Levis, he hadn't been great, but he's a little better than what they had before. And I believe they got Treylon Burks back along with DeAndre Hopkins. So I think they could maybe keep this interesting. 14 points, that's a lot of points in the NFL. So I'd probably lean toward taking that, because Miami's, yeah, they're good, but they have some potential issues there, I feel like. So I think Tennessee's the play here.
They got Miami has two guys in the top 6 in MVP odds, as you see there in the bottom right of your screen. Tyreek at plus 600 and Tua at plus 1,000. Tyreek, man, if he has another great night, he's gonna jump up a little bit. I think he's gonna be more like plus 400 if you like Tyreek Hill to maybe sneak the MVP away from one of these favorites. And you need to jump on him now, because I think his odds are only going to get worse as we go along. Look, one of my best bets of the week is Giants Packers over 37. I still think I think both of these teams are going to score a little bit. I actually think Green Bay's going to be a little flat coming off of their win against Green Bay. And when I say flat, I mean over Green Bay, over Kansas City last week. I actually think their defense is going to kind of maybe not play as well as one would like. I think Saquon's going to be able to do a little bit. I think DeVito is going to do enough to keep it close. If I had to bet one way or the other, I would take the Giants, but I wouldn't put anything on that. I really like the over. I think this is going to be a 27-23 kind of game that comes down to the end. And you'll have to pick which one you want to watch because the other one, I'm kind of with Spence on this one. If I had to pick one, and I don't think I'm going to put anything on this. What I think I might do is just to have a little fun tonight and bet something. Maybe I'll take a teaser on the overs, the two overs. The over 31 and over 39. Put a little teaser play on the totals. So maybe
I could see that.
Maybe I'll do that because I definitely think that there'll be enough going on to at least get the overs on those two with the teasers, and we'll see how it goes. But I don't like this 2 Monday Night Football thing, and I still don't understand why they're doing this in the middle of the season.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. I mean, especially considering they're at the same time. I mean, I'll probably play it to where I have one on the TV and one on my phone.
Yeah,
since I got NFL Plus, but I mean, not everyone has that. That's probably their thing, though. They probably want to get more and more people to go over to that.
If you have YouTube TV, you also can do the two games together. I forget what they call it, the montage or whatever it is. They'll have both games on the same screen. If you have YouTube TV, you can do that. I'm going to be at poker, so I don't care. Whatever game they got on, that's the one I'll be watching. But I'm looking more, hopefully, for the Ace of Spades next to the Ace of Diamonds. That's what I really want to say tonight, Spence. But we'll find out. All right. Final thoughts before we go off the air tonight.
All right. Yeah, my final thought will be about Jaden Daniels. Congrats to Jaden Daniels for winning the Heisman Trophy. He deserved it. And the thing that was really crazy to me, as we pointed out in our group text with Gabe Henderson, the fact that so many of these Heisman voters left him off of their ballots, didn't even include him in their top 3. Okay, if you don't think he's better than Penix because Washington did better on the season, I think that's silly, but okay, fine. I could maybe see a few West Coast bias people doing that, but the fact that some people didn't even include him is just absurd. I mean, they are putting guys some people are putting these defensive players over him that, I mean, they didn't really have any outstanding defensive players this year, at least not for the Heisman. So to me, it just goes to show that, I mean, I'm glad he won, but it just goes to show that a lot of these voters just don't vote with integrity.
100%. And, I've said this before. The reason why they do that is the same. I dealt with this back when we were voting on, all-state players back in high school and Mr. Louisiana back in high school and all these sorts of things. And even doing top 10 weekly polls. People do this because it's not just because they're being vindictive. They're doing it because they want their guy to win. And whoever their guy is, if they know Jane Daniels is the biggest threat, they're just leaving him off the ballot so he doesn't get any points, which is really crappy. If I'm voting and I think that Bo Nix is the second place guy, but I think Jaden Daniels should win it, which is the way that I thought, I'm not going to leave Bo Nix off so Jaden Daniels doesn't, has a clearer path. That's not fair to Bo Nix. But that's people don't vote like that anymore. They just don't care. It's really crappy the way they do it. And you know what? Jaden Daniels ended up winning it all anyway, so in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. And today was named the All-America quarterback. So congratulations to Jaden Daniels. All of those things, so very well-deserved and very well earned. And I tell you what, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Go look at his numbers compared to Joe Burrow's. They were better. That may be blasphemy to some people, but they were better. And I got to be honest, he might have been a better quarterback. Had he had a decent defense, this LSU team would have been scary. And I mean scary to play. I know that for sure. My last thought is go check out Datitude, because I said a lot of things on Datitude that I said today with a little bit more Datitude. Things that I might not necessarily want to say on Bayou Bets. We'll just leave it at that. All right, a reminder to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. We have some programming changes again over the course of the next couple of weeks. We will be on Thursday at 3 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock. It'll be Thomas Casale and I. And then next week, I think it's going to be Tuesday, and we're going to have to figure out Spencer's got his fantasy show, so we're going to have to figure out which one's going to go on at 3, which show's going to go on at 4. We'll let you know that early in the week. You'll know it all by subscribing to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. And before we go off the air, Spencer, as we always do, we thank Caesar Sportsbook for being the official odds partner of bet.nola.com. We'll talk to you later in the week, my friend, and if not, we'll see you at the Saints game. I can't wait to see what that crowd's like on Sunday afternoon.
We fired up to see Derek Carr versus Tommy DeVito. Woo! Can't be any worse than Derek Carr and Bryce Young going a combined 50% completion percentage. My God, that was tough to watch.
Who will Derek Carr yell at this week is the question. Who are you
We
going
shall
to
see.
What if you get plus 400 on Alvin Kamara?
Dude, I might take it. I mean, Kamara don't play, so Derek Carr better not keep pushing his luck.
Exactly. All right, everybody have a great week. We will see you on Thursday, and enjoy the games tonight. 2 Monday Night Football games. We'll talk to you later.